Hello everybody, welcome back to HardReset.Info channel. Today I'll show you the entire settings overview on your Sharp 50 TV. So let's start off with the control center right here. Here we have the screensaver, so we can enable it and it looks something like this. Now we have the inputs. Here we can choose inputs like the antenna, whatever. And here we have the sound settings. Here we can change them. Now let's go over to the picture settings. Here we can change, let's say, brightness, contrast, saturation, HUE, sharpness, and here we can reset them to default. So it'll look just like that. Now let's move on to the accessibility. Here we will have some captions and text-to-speech or a high contrast text, but it's experimental, so I do not recommend using that. Now let's leave this setting and let's go over to the Wi-Fi. Here we can connect to networks, we can forget networks, we can do everything here like a data saver, data usage and alerts, or maybe check if we are connected to the Ethernet. So now let's move on to the Bluetooth. And here we have the Bluetooth. Here we can enable or disable the Bluetooth. Now let's move on to all settings. Here we will have the channels and inputs. So here we can choose channels. We can scan the channels. So we can watch some normal TV, like the live TV. Here we have inputs, and here we can either show or hide the input. We can name it differently. Here we have the composite. And here we can also see CAC deviceless, but I have no devices like that. So let's move on to display and sound. I showed you guys the picture and the sound settings already, so let's move on to the audio input. Here we can choose it on audio, and here we can choose the delay. So now moving on to the network and internet, I showed you guys this one too. So let's go to accounts and sign in. Here we can add the Google account. We can add a child to our TV, and here we can also lock our profile. We can hide, like we can see the hidden purchases and rentals. Here we have the Google Assistant, Google Home, or we can simply remove the account right here. So now moving on, we have the privacy settings like location, ads, and the Google Assistant. So everything is right here. If you need something, then you should probably find it in privacy or system. But moving on to apps, here we can check the apps, like we can see all apps. Now we can find one and we can uninstall it. We can clear the data, the cache, we can disable notifications and much more. So it's worth checking out on yourself. Now here we have the system. Here we have the accessibility. I showed you guys this one. Now we have the about, like system update, device name. We can reset it here. We can check the status of our network, the serial number, the IP address. Now here we have some legal information, the model, the TV version. And here we can also see the software version. So moving on to date and time. Here we can use the automatic date and time, or we can set it off. We can set it by ourselves, let it be like the 1st June 2025, and we can also change the time to, let's say, 11:28 p.m. So this is how you guys can do that. It's not that useful, but if something's wrong, then I recommend using that. Now here we have the language, so we can change the entire language of our TV. So I changed it to a random language now. And as you guys can see, it looks just like that. So here, I'll change it back and let's move on to another settings. Now here we have the keyboard. We can change it Gboard. We can change it from here to another one, but we need to install it. Here we have the storage. Here we can free up our storage. So like clear the data, clear the cache. Here we have the ambient mode. Basically ambient mode looks like the screensaver. So it's all the same. Now let it load and it looks just like that. Moving on to power and energy, here we have the power on behavior. We can either choose by last use input or the Google TV home screen. So when the TV turns on, basically it will return to the home screen of Google TV or the last used input. So it may be your antenna, satellite. So now we have the energy saver. Now it's basically when we want to automatically turn off TV when it's not active. So you can set it from 15 minutes to never or 24 hours. So now let's leave those settings, go to power, and here we have the sleep timer, picture off, switch off timer, auto sleep, and the standby light. So now the last one from the power and energy section, we have the timer, so it's power on time type and the power off time type. Here you guys can enable it and change the power to automatically power on and power off the TV. So it's very useful if you want to save energy. So moving on to cast, I recommend using while casting, and basically it will let others control the cast media from your devices. So you can use it on always while casting or never. I recommend using it while casting. And now the next one is the Google. So basically all you have here is a system services update, so it's not that useful. I always skip this one. Here you guys can disable or enable the system sounds. And here you guys can enable the retail mode. So whenever you're planning on selling your TV, then I recommend using the retail mode. But if you're planning on using it by yourself, then I recommend turning it off in the settings. So let me turn it off now. Let me leave the system. Oh, not yet. Here we have the restart. Basically, if you click it, then your TV will restart. Now let's move on to remote and accessories. Here we can pair an accessory. I showed you guys the Bluetooth thing in the beginning of the video. Here we can pair an accessory like your phone to Google Cast faster. And the last one is the Google feedback. So here you guys can send the feedback about the Google TV. Here you can let them know what they can fix, like improve. You can simply send the feedback, and this is all from the settings of your Sharp TV. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and see you in the next video. Bye.